Today on the GOKU Runner Talks podcast for the second episode, we have Robert Key. He's done over 40 marathons. He's done Ironmans, including Ironman Kona, and also has completed ultra marathons up to the 100-mile distance. And he also happens to be a pacer for the back of the pack of the Houston Marathon, a turtle pacer, or also known as a balloon person. Let's go find out more about him today. All right, so this is the second episode of the GOKU Runner podcast, the GOKU Runner Runs podcast, and we're going to talk to Robert over here. He has been doing many great things. Told you guys all about it in the intro. And Robert, welcome to the show. You are my first official guest for the GOKU Runner Talks podcast.
Well, I'm quite honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Introduce yourself to everybody and tell us how you started running. I know there's a lot of stuff that you've done, but just us how you just started running at the beginning.
Well, I started running when I was 11, and which means I've been running for over 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
I ran cross country junior high school back in 1971 and 1972, and finished dead last in every single meet for the first 2 years that I ran cross country.
Oh, wow.
Now, back then, they didn't have, 400 kids showing up at a cross country meet like they do now. There were usually 10 or 15 of us, but nonetheless, I hope nobody's beating my record of finishing dead last in all those.
So that means when you were dead last, there's only like 20 kids running the race, and you were right at the end.
Pretty much, yes. And back then, I think cross country was 2 miles. It's probably the same now, but that was in junior high school. Yeah.
Yeah, cross country. You know, I went to my first meet because my godson, he's part of cross country, and I went to a meet over at the Woodlands. It was like the Nike cross country event, and I was amazed about how huge it was. It was like 300, 400 kids, maybe more. I think there was like
Mm-hmm.
1,000 kids out there, and it was an event. I didn't know it was such a big thing. Like now it's exploded.
Yeah, it's gotten very, very popular.
So, running, you've done Ironmans. How did you move up from becoming last place into actually falling in love with running? So, was running your first love, or was cycling? What was it?
Running's always been my first love. I ran my first marathon in 1985 here in Houston. And so actually in January, it's going to be 40 years since I ran my first Houston marathon. Um, Ran marathons and qualified for Boston and ran it 3 times. And like most people, I got into triathlons really by mistake. I had a stress fracture in 2007 and wasn't able to run for a few months. So I started swimming so I'd have something to do for cardio. And from there, it got into cycling and then into, mixing in the running. And I went totally over to the dark side and ended up doing 14 Ironman races and finished that with the World Championship in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, Robert, like we talked about in the beginning, like he has so many accolades. He's the Ironman finisher. You've spoken at the athletes' dinner beforehand, right? And
Oh, correct. Yes.
how did that come about?
Well, I'm a speaker by profession,
Hmm.
and I also had, which is another long story for another time. I had 2 heart procedures in 2010, and 312 days after my second heart procedure, I finished my first Ironman. And Ironman got wind of my story and asked me if I would speak at the athlete dinner in 2012.
Yeah,
Big
and
honor, big honor.
was that the one in Houston at the Houston
Yes,
Marathon
up to
at
the Woodlands. Yes.
the Woodlands track? Yeah, that I actually went there. My brother, he completed his first full Ironman over there, and it was a hot day. I remember, and
Oh yeah.
it's a torturous experience even for the spectators. It's a long day. It's a long
Do
day.
you know that I can't recall the exact year. I did Ironman Texas 6 times. I can't recall the year, but there was one year where there were more spectators picked up by the ambulances and paramedics than there were athletes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's a long day. You're waiting for your athlete to complete everything, and you're trying to run around to get them, and sometimes you're not drinking water. And you know,
Hmm.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So after the marathons, after the triathlons, I saw that you've done how many 100 miles have you completed?
I've done 8 100-mile ultra marathons.
And which one is like of those are your favorites? I've attempted a 100 miler. I did the Rocky Raccoon 100 last
Well,
year.
the all 8 that I did for pediatric cancer,
Oh
and
wow.
that was at Snowdrop.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I met the race director. I forgot her name. I'm sure you know, right?
Mhm.
So I met her and she started that. I've always wanted to do that one because it's on New Year's Day. It's a like a short course, right? I think it's like a million loops. I don't know how many loops is that
It's
over there.
it's 0.76 mile loop, and you do that loop 144, 145 times to get 100
Mm.
miles.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, Robert's done 100 milers. He's done Ironmans. He's done marathons. From all that, how do you go from doing all those crazy like marathons and qualifying for Boston? You're clearly a faster runner. How do you go that from that to pacing the Houston Marathon? And how did you get into pacing?
Well, I'm a big believer that you haven't ever really done anything great until you've helped somebody else achieve a greater goal.
Mm,
And for me, I've crossed all the finish lines that I need to cross. And the greatest thrill I get now is being back there at the back of the pack as in my capacity with the Houston Marathon and helping as many people as I can, most of whom are first time marathoners, get across the finish line and hopefully get them an official time.
yeah, I actually, this is my first time experiencing the back of the pack of the Houston Marathon because I was just training for my 100 miler and I just want to get time on my feet. So I was out there trying to get just about 6 hours. And that's when I saw the balloon people. And I was like, whoa, who are these people? Why are they behind me? And if they pass me, I'm going to be kicked off the course. And I thought it was a hard experience for myself, but for you guys even, because people aren't too excited about seeing you guys, right?
No, we are I like to so the lady that runs this with me. She and I have done it together. This will be our 8th year in January. Her name is Liz Garcia, and we always say that we're you don't want to see us during the race ever. You
No.
never want, and it's funny, but it's also very true.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true.
if I can go into a little bit now about what it is that we actually do, because I think most people don't quite understand. First of all, we are not what you would call a traditional pace group by any stretch of the imagination. Um, yes, but we basically are the official last starters and last finishers of the marathon. So
Mm,
whenever we cross the start line, we are touching that finish line at exactly 6 hours to the second, as close as we can get. And uh, our main objective is this year they're actually making us part of the official pace team groups, but I would not say that we are a pace team per se because nobody wants to. You
mm,
do not want to run with us.
mm,
Once we start, we're carrying balloons. The gun goes off in the race around 7 a.m. We typically don't even cross the starting line until 7:45 to 7:50. I think last year we may have crossed even closer to 7:55. So once we cross that start line, yes, we're doing an overall 13:44 or 13:45 pace per mile to get finished in 6 hours. But along the way, what we do is extraordinarily different than what any other pace group does. So, in your first 8 miles of the Houston Marathon, you've got all the half marathoners and all the marathoners together, which most people know. And then at the 8 mile mark is where you split off.
mhm.
So, we're going along with our balloons, and Liz and I will do a walk run. We'll like run for 1 minute, walk for two or three. And I need to add, we are both extremely experienced endurance athletes. Liz herself has done multiple Ironman races. She is a Leadville 100 qualifier.
Wow.
So she's in her own right a very, very experienced endurance athlete. So when she and I are doing this, we're going along, and we try to keep we try to build about a 2 minute cushion on where we need to be time wise. And the reason we do that is if, one of us has to stop and go to the bathroom, tie our shoe, whatever reason. So we'll usually have about a 2 minute, sometimes maybe a 3 minute cushion on where we need to be. So we get to the 8 mile mark, and that's where the gate closes, so to speak. If you're doing the marathon and we have passed you by that point,
You split
my
off.
number one suggestion to you is go to the left and go and do the half marathon. Don't
Hmm.
try to continue on in the marathon. If you get to that 8 mile mark and you need to do a 13, and it's your first marathon. I'm going to say, because most of the people we experience are first timers.
Hmm. For sure.
But if it's your first marathon or not, I mean, all of us have days where we're doing better and not better. But if it, regardless of where you are, if you're struggling to maintain, let's say, a 13-minute pace at that point, and you're fighting to maintain a 13-minute pace at the 8 mile cutoff, if it were me, I would do the smart thing and just bear off to the left and go on and finish the half marathon course. Because once you get behind us, we represent, as I said earlier, the course cutoffs. There's another cutoff at mile 14, and there's another cutoff at mile 20. And when you get to those, there's going to be a police car and a SAG wagon or bus, and they're going to ask you to step off the course and take the bus and go ahead and ride back on in. And they're doing that for your safety, because once we go past and they have closed those areas off, then basically, as a participant in the race, you don't have any more protection, and you
Hmm.
might not have any more water stations open. Uh, it just depends, because they close. Obviously, they close in a staggered format for the rest of the race.
So for the half marathon, there's no balloon people for the half marathon. It's just
There
for
is
the full
balloon people
marathon.
for the half marathon. That's going to be Aaron and Casey Blades,
Okay, so I'll have
and
them on the podcast soon too.
yeah, and they are hysterical. I will say that all the balloon people, we have a lot of fun with what we do. We take it very seriously, but we have a lot of fun with the runners. Um, so once we cross that 8 mile mark, oh, let me back up for just a moment.
Hmm.
The start of the race. Every year, gun goes off at 7. We finally get to the start line around 7:45 to 7:50. Inevitably, we will turn around and look way back behind us where the entrance to all the corrals were. And we'll see, I don't know, 8, 10, sometimes as many as 20 people running, trying to get to the start line.
Yeah.
And it's almost, we're coming up on now getting close to an hour after the gun went off. We see people who are standing around talking to each other. We see people who decide, oh, I think I'll take a last minute porta potty break. Get that stuff out of the way as quickly as you can. My suggestion, especially if you think you're going to have trouble making any of the cutoffs or making an official 6 hour time, my suggestion to you is get up in your corral and get going as soon as you can possibly get going. We have people that think it's cool to hang back with us and run with us, but because of the way we do the whole race, which I'll explain a little bit more of that in a minute, because of the way we do the race, you never want to be with us,
Yeah.
because we don't do it in a conventional sense. Uh, so get out there,
So
get out there early, get going as soon as you can, and don't mess around.
so what's the next pace group ahead of y'all? Like, is it a 5:55 or is it a five? I think
I
5:45,
think if
right?
I looked at the pace groups, it's 5:56.
5:56. So
Yeah.
last year, I saw you guys. I saw you guys at the balloon people. I knew what you guys were because I know balloon people and like Disney marathons are very synonymous with bringing up the back of the pack, the last runner. And I told my friend, we don't want to be anywhere near you. We need to go to the front of the crowd, not next to these balloon people, because the closer you are to them, the less likelihood you are to finish the race or be pulled off the course. So, do you think a strategy would be to like just get all the way at the front of the corral so you're
Well,
not anywhere near you
I'm not
guys?
going to say get all the way at the front of the corral, but get going in your corral as soon as you can.
Hmm.
Because if you want to be, the respectful thing to do is to seed yourself properly at the beginning of the race. And if you truly think you are going to be around the 5:50 to 6 hour mark, then you really should be at the back of corral. I'm assuming E is going to be the last
Hmm.
corral again. You
Yeah.
you should be at the back of corral E. Uh, but don't just hang back there. Once the crowd starts to clear, get going, because we're coming. Uh, every year. Let me add one more thing, if I may. Just because you finish ahead of us,
Hmm.
you still have to have a 6 hour or better chip time to get an official time.
Right.
Okay. So we will encounter people who may have started 20 or 30 minutes ahead of us. And we'll catch them, on Allen Parkway between, mile 20, 23 and the finish. And we'll catch them, but they'll finish ahead of us. So they made the course cutoffs, but their chip time might be 6 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So, they'll cross the finish line, and I just want people to understand that just because you finish ahead of us, you still have to have a 6 hour or better chip time to be an official finisher.
Yeah, last year I was paid because I was fine, running sub 6, but I saw some people struggling, so I would told them, "Let's go. We'll pick up the pace, and you just follow me. I'll get you to the finish line." But there was at the end, the last 2 or 3 miles, we were ahead of you guys. But I told her like you still have to finish under 6 hours in order to get an official time, even though you guys are behind us. It doesn't matter. You still have to get that sub 6 to get an official time. I think she finished at 6:02 or something. So her time
Yeah.
wasn't official, but she fell back at the end because she felt comfortable enough to do that. But
Yeah. So now let me explain to you what happens after we cross mile 8.
mhm,
So we make the right hand turn at mile 8. They close the gate. And really, from mile 8 through probably 13, 14, 15, Liz and I really don't encounter that many runners, which is a good thing. Uh, because again, most of these, if you think about when we finally start versus when everybody else started, I would say 99.9% of the field has got it at a minimum a 10 to 15-minute head start on us. Okay. So if we're doing a 13:44, 45 pace, even if we have a 2 or 3 minute cushion, we still shouldn't catch you in theory. Does that make
mhm,
sense?
yeah,
Okay. So so we turn at mile 8, and around mile 9 or so, there will be a police car and or a marathon committee car, and those one or both of those vehicles will basically escort us all the way into the finish line, or as close to down Allen Parkway. And what they are doing is Liz and I will have a tracker that we wear, and the tracker is different than anything else that the other runners have. And the marathon committee back downtown, who is wanting us to be at certain points at certain times, they will radio to the police car or to the marathon committee car and say, Robert and Liz are 2 or 3 minutes ahead right now.
mhm,
Want them at mile 12 to stop and cheer for runners for 4 minutes. So we'll stop and we'll cheer, and people will get past us. And then they'll tell us, okay, you're now 30 seconds ahead, or you're now 1 minute ahead, or whatever it is. And so we'll take off running again. And then they'll come over and they'll say, okay, we want you to stop at the next mile marker and cheer for 1 minute and then take off running. And so the whole rest of the time, we never establish a solid 13:45 pace.
mhm,
We're all over the board. And that's why I tell people who aren't experienced, don't try to stay with us, because some people do that, and suddenly Liz and I,
you're
there was an occasion a couple of years back where I think we had to run I want to say like an 8 or 9 minute mile
holy moly.
at mile 22, and we're carrying balloons.
Yeah,
So, and the balloons, of course, the balloons don't weigh anything, but when you're running into the wind, they
yeah,
can be a struggle to carry. But what happens is people think, oh, I'm hanging uh, with the sweepers or the turtles or the balloon people, and I'm okay. And then suddenly we take off in a dead sprint.
yeah,
and they don't really understand why. That's why I'm saying do your own thing, and don't be focused on us.
Yeah, I noticed that last year because I ran with you guys last year.
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw my Instagram video. That's the one I posted about you guys. It got pretty popular. That's why
I
I'm
did. I did. I
interviewing.
think I
Yeah,
even commented on
you did comment on it. You told people what you were doing, but I just remember like the times that you were saying that we were ahead of the sweepers. It kept changing, and you guys were running ahead. So I was like, why are they running ahead? They should be at the back. But I did like the fact that you were out there cheering on the runners to motivate them. Say, keep on going. You got this. You're gonna finish. You're gonna get that medal. So that's another thing that you guys do. You help the runners out at the back of the pack and you try to push
Yeah,
them.
when the race is over, my Garmin will typically show that I've run anywhere from 28 to 30 miles most of the time. Because what we do is, if when we realize we've got a little bit of a cushion, we'll turn around and run back to encourage people. So,
Yeah.
we're going back and forth and back and forth. And by the time we get to Allen Parkway, there have been some years where we've got plus or minus 100 people in front of us and 100 people in back of us that are right on the bubble of making it to the cutoff. So it's and we do everything we can to help everyone who can possibly be helped, because those people, I have a lot of admiration for them. I've been at the back in many races, and I've struggled in many races myself, so I know where they are mentally and physically.
Yeah, so this year I'm actually going to be leading some people who want to run at the back of the pack too, because they want to just finish the race. So I told them to run at least a 13 minutes at 13:20 because we do want to finish towards the back, but we don't want to be too close to you guys at all. So
Right.
I'm gonna try to keep that at that pace, 13 to 13:20. I think that's a good pace for us, strategy wise. And you are a speaker on strategy. How do you think about that strategy for the race? Get
Oh,
people through the finish
yeah. I
line.
mean, if you can do that, that's great. I always tell people it doesn't matter what, as long as you finish with an official time. It doesn't matter what your time is. There's no place on the comment on the medal for comments. They all, they all say finisher.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
so if you feel like you can do that and you feel like you can maintain it the whole way, that's very smart.
So what led you to, or yeah, what led you to want to be like a turtle pacer, the back of the pack sweeper, a balloon person? Like, why did you want to do this? And how did the Houston Marathon approach you to do this?
Okay, so actually, Liz was a turtle in 2016, I believe, was her first year. And the guy that ran with her was not able to do it in 2017, and so she called me. She and I are very close friends, and she called me and said, "Hey, would you like to do this with me?" And I said, "Sure." And that's really how it started. And we complement each other very well, with uh, not only being able to, we are constantly talking back and forth to each other
Hmm.
about our pacing and where we are and what we need to be doing and when we need to run for a little bit, when we need to walk for a little bit, when we need to stop. Uh, it's so anyway. So after that, we did the marathon committee was very pleased with the job we did. So we've been doing it every year since, and I absolutely love it. But it's not. I would tell anybody who is I want to say a normal quote unquote 6 hour marathoner, it, even anybody who's a 5.5 hour marathoner, it's very, very difficult to do the marathon the way we do it
Yeah,
because of all the stopping and starting.
yeah. And it's a lot slower than your normal pace. Do you find that difficult, or I mean, I mean, you're a Boston Marathon. Do you think that that's a difficult thing to do, or what pace do you think somebody needs to be able to run consistently to be able to pace the back of the pack? Like you guys are like crazy 100 milers, Badwater or whatever marathon she did. Do you think the qualifications, like who would you pass the torch to that you needed to trust to do your job?
Oh wow. It'd have to be somebody really with a good personality and a very caring heart.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Liz and I, we really care about all the runners that are around us, and we want the best for them. And we are, during the course of the race, we're counselors, um,
For sure.
motivators, teachers. We tell our own stories of struggles we've had in races to these runners. Uh, but you have to be a really really good people person, not just a good runner. You have to be a good people person, and I think you have to be. I don't know. I've never thought of a number, but I think you probably have to be at at least a 4 to 4.5 hour marathoner
Mhm.
to be able to do what we do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would quantify that.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think so. But doing what you guys do is hard. Do you ever have people come out? Because I know regular pacers. Because I paced some sorry, I paced some races before, and you'll get hugs from the people that you helped pace. Do people come up to you and curse you? They're like, "Oh, you passed me during the race," or are they celebrating you and hugging you after the race?
After the race, they're celebrating and hugging us. During the race, they're cussing us, and no, not all of them, but we're the people that they love to hate us.
Yeah.
Because what'll happen is, especially when you get on Allen Parkway and you've got those last 3 or 4 tough miles, and you've got those two little blips on Allen Parkway that you go up and down, uh, that most people don't pay attention to until they're that late in a marathon. But we as I said before, we do a run walk. So at that point, we're really extremely focused on getting to that finish line and touching it in exactly 6 hours. So we will do, somebody may pass us who's struggling.
Mhm.
And then suddenly Liz and I have decided we need to run for a minute or two. So we go blowing past whoever that is. But each time we do, we always turn and look at them and say, hey, this is our run portion. We're going to be walking in again in just a minute. And we also, when we know how far ahead we are, ahead or behind, like I say, we like to stay around 2 to 3 minutes. Um, when we know how far ahead we are, we will let the runners around us know. So, hey, look, guys, we're here right now, but we're actually about 2 minutes ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So, don't feel too defeated. Just keep moving forward.
So, uh, the Houston Marathon, I'm a Houston Marathon ambassador. Why do you love the Houston Marathon? You've run it over 40 times. Why do
No,
you
I
love
haven't
it so
run. No,
much?
no, no. I haven't run it over 40 times. I've run the. This will be my
Oh,
18th Houston
18th,
Marathon.
18th, sorry. Yeah, you run 40,
Uh,
40 plus marathons.
yeah. Why do I? Well, it's my hometown marathon. It was the first marathon I ever did. Now, I will throw one thing into the story. Uh,
Hmm.
1984 is when I attempted my first marathon. I was 24 years old, uh, really stupid, thought I had trained properly. I think I was running a whopping 10 to 15 miles a week. Uh, and, back then we didn't have training groups, we didn't have gels, we didn't have electrolyte powders. We just went out and ran. And I started the race that day way out of my element, and got to mile 21 on the marathon in Memorial Park. And each year when I get to that spot, I walk over to it and just touch it with my hand and just say a little thank you to God for getting me past that point. But I collapsed at that point and
Wow.
just didn't get up and keep moving. And so I DNF'd my very first marathon.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So,
Yeah.
I can share, and I share that story with people that are around me when we get to that point on the course to let them know,
Mhm.
hey, I've been there. I know where you are right now. But if there's anything within me, I'm not going to let you quit. I'm gonna do everything I can to help you get to the finish line.
Yeah, the Houston Marathon for me, like it's just the crowd support that you get there. I haven't run a ton of other marathons besides Houston, but I haven't seen anything like it uh, in any other race. I just love the atmosphere, the food that people give you at the race. It's a running buffet, and it's just a great race. You also do Run for a Reason. Can you tell us more about Run for a Reason and that charity?
Well, so I've done the hero program a few times for Run for a Reason, but as a speaker, the Houston Marathon Committee asked me to be the keynote speaker at the Run for a Reason luncheon.
Hmm.
I think I did it 5 or 6 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. of course, to honor all the local charities and all the money that they raise. And I will tell you, if you have an opportunity to sign up for one of the Run for a Reason programs, do it. Uh,
Hmm.
when you run for something that's bigger than you, it gives you a little bit more incentive. And I will also throw in, when people sign up for whatever race it is you're doing for the very first time, and remember this: as long as you finish under 6 hours, if it's your first one, you're going to run a personal best.
Right.
Doesn't
That's
matter
right.
what time is on the clock, but you're gonna run a personal best. But the main thing I think people lose sight of is, uh, they forget why they signed up to do it to begin with. And, they may not have really understood that much about running when they signed up, but then they start to learn about running and they start to learn about pacing. And suddenly it's gone from, well, I signed up because this is my real heartfelt reason why. But now I'm starting to focus on time.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to focus on what my pace is. I am a big believer that the reason people cry when they cross a marathon finish line has absolutely nothing to do with crossing the finish line. It has to do with they have been stripped raw of their emotions, and the real reason why they were doing it to begin with surfaces.
Hmm.
That's what brings out the emotion in people. And that's what people forget. And that's what you need to remember. Remember why you signed up to do this in the first place.
Yeah, and when you're pushing, you have a charity to raise money for. You could definitely dig into that and think about the charity and how you're helping them when you need that in the race to push a little harder. And I think the
Exactly, exactly. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, I've run for. I'm not going to name the charities that I've run for, but I've run for different charities, and all of those charities, not just the ones I've run for, but all of them out there have got just great hearts for what they do. And I would really encourage people, if you can, to sign up and run for, run for a reason. And if the Run for a Reason programs are filled up, find a charity to run for and let your friends and family know you want to raise money for them for your efforts.
Yeah, and also just for another reason, if they want to run for a charity, I think the Houston Marathon is actually one of the lower end, like to the point to raise money. I think it's only $500, and you'll get your race for free, and you'll do a good job of raising money too, compared to other races which are, sometimes $2,000 to $3,000. And if you just put it out there on social media that you want to raise money for so and so charity, you'll be surprised at how fast you could raise that money because five
E-
hundred
e-
dollars at the end of the day isn't it's a lot of money, but still, it's not going to be too hard for you to raise compared to other charities out there.
Exactly, and I'll tell you, when I've run races to raise money for whatever cause, I always, when I put it out on a social network, I always just basically say whatever amount you feel comfortable in giving is great. I don't like to throw out there, oh, give $100, give 200.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't like to do stuff like that because $100 to one person might be $1 million to another.
Yeah.
So be mindful of that in your fundraising.
So I appreciate you on the channel today. What other things are going on? Are you doing any other racing still? Are you racing Ironmans or anything?
No, no, the world championship in Hawaii was my 14th and final one. The goal was to
Wow.
get there and do that race the whole. That was the goal the entire time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And a good friend of mine, and I did that in 2018. A good friend of mine saw me after the race, and he said, "Well, you went out on top." And I said, "No, I went out on the bottom of the top." Let me tell you, those people are those are some phenomenal athletes out there in that race. And the same thing with Boston. I mean,
Hmm.
I always say I was blessed to run three more Bostons than I ever thought I would run. And you might be, some big shot runner in your local running community, but you ain't nobody there.
I can just only imagine. Like they're all top of their game right there, running.
Well, my
You
my
know.
first Boston, I remember sitting by this guy on the plane on the way back, young fella, and I asked him how he did, and he said I ran 2:54, and I was like, wow, because my PR is 3:19.
Uh-huh.
He said I ran 2:54, and he said I didn't finish in the top 1,000.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So that
That's
puts it
that would
that
win
puts it
many
in perspective.
marathons out there, right?
But,
That would,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but you mentioned earlier my running or triathlon accolades. I promise you I've never been in danger of winning anything. Uh, I'm definitely an overachiever, but I've loved all the friends I've made. I love the
Mhm.
running community, how supportive people are of one another, and I just can't imagine not being active and being part of it.
Yeah, Houston right now, running in general has another boom right now. So if you're in Houston, there's a ton of running clubs that you could go to, right? Have you
Oh
been
yeah.
joining any of them?
Well, no, I don't join any of them. I've been a guest speaker at probably just about every running club in Houston at one time or another.
Okay.
Um, so I feel like I'm, a part of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I went out to, I think every other week there's another running club popping up in Houston, and it's good to see that how the explosion of running is back. It's like it's a cool thing to do again. So
Yeah.
I it's
And
always
and
great.
let me just share one more thing. If you're lined up in one of those corrals on race day and you've done, whatever race you're doing, you've done it before. So you've run a half marathon or you've run a
Mhm.
marathon. What I would encourage you to do is seek out. I guarantee you there's somebody standing around you. It's their first time. Guarantee it. Let them know today you're going to cross that finish line.
Yep.
Be supportive of them. Just let them know it's okay because Alberta Salazar, who uh, was a Boston Marathon winner, American Boston Marathon winner, has one of the best lines I think ever. He said, "We are all cowards standing on the starting line." And if you
That's
think
so
about it,
true.
you're standing there and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, all these people around me are so experienced, and they've got this." And no, I promise you, doesn't matter how many times you do it, everybody's still got a little bit of the nerves going on.
Yeah, everybody's always unsure at at the start line on how they're gonna do. I know I have that feeling many times.
Yeah.
So, so Robert, I have one more thing. We're gonna have a little game. It's called this or that. So you have to choose this or that. So either or, okay?
All right.
So there's like five of them. So marathons or triathlons.
Marathon
Whoa, okay. Pizzas or burgers.
burgers.
Trail running or road racing.
Oh gosh, that's a toss up.
As I got
They're
older,
both they're both so uniquely different. I'm going to say road running because I've always been a road runner, but I've done a lot of trail races.
okay, fair enough. And then the next, we have two more. New running shoes or a free entry to a marathon.
New running shoes.
A good one. And then last one, belt buckles or a race medal. It's almost like the other one I asked you.
I I'm going to say a race medal.
Okay, so I can tell you're a true road runner from all of that. I like it. So I appreciate you, Robert, for being my first guest on this podcast. And if are there any last words for somebody out there who is wanting to run the Houston Marathon and think that they could, do it and they're on the tiptoe on whether they should do it or not?
I will tell you from someone who's been running for almost 55 years now, the single hardest distance you will ever conquer is the distance between your ears.
Hmm. That's true. All right. All right, Robert. I appreciate you being on the podcast. How can people find you? Is there any way they could do that?
Oh, well, I mean, they can look for me. I'll be posting some stuff on the Chevron Houston Marathon website. I'm gonna let's just say find me on the Houston Marathon Facebook page.
Okay. All right, Robert. I appreciate you being on the podcast. Check them out. Go find them on the Houston Marathon page. And I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's been an honor.
Thanks for joining me for episode 2 of the GOKU Runner Talks podcast. I know I had some audio issues on my end. Robert sounded just fine, but I'll get those fixed in the next episodes. so y'all can hear me even better. Make sure to follow, subscribe, review, comment, so that my podcast can be heard and seen by many others. Thank you guys again for watching or listening. We'll see you guys on the next podcast.